Good evening, all. Thanks for to be here for this webcast. My name is Rafael. I'm part of the WMUG, one of the biggest and brightest user group in the UK for about system sensor. Today we are going to have Solarwinds with their solution for patch manager and patch third-party software using configuration manager. With us we have Michael and Lawrence, and they are going to demo all their systems. And also at the end we are going to have about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A. Okay, thank you. Michael, with you now.
Okay, thanks for introduction, Rafael. So good evening all. Thanks for joining us today. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put up another slide deck here and we'll work through this. As Rafael has said, my name is Michael Halpin and I'm one of the sales engineers here at SolarWinds based in Cork in Ireland. Also on the line, I'm delighted to have Lawrence Garvin, who is one of the head geeks here at SolarWinds, and he also happens to be Microsoft MVP. So good afternoon, Lawrence.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us.
So very quickly, I'm just going to give a very quick agenda here. To start off with, we're just going to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes and just go through a few slides. Basically, I just want to introduce SolarWinds and also some of the products in our catalog. But obviously, the main focus of this is going to be around the technical demonstration. So we're then going to spend roughly 30 minutes looking at the SolarWinds Patch Manager product and how that integrates with Config Manager 2012. Then at the end of the session, we're going to leave 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A. And at that stage, I'll be able to pass over to Lawrence, and Lawrence will be able to handle any questions that you may have either on the product or anything else in this area. So I'm sure most of you have heard of SolarWinds in different contexts. Traditionally, the company has been thought of as a network management company, but recently we've started to branch out into not just becoming network management, but also covering systems management areas. So the objective of SolarWinds is to provide enterprise-class IT management software. So it's not just for the network guys anymore, it's basically for everybody that needs to do management within the IT department in a company. The company is growing quite rapidly, and we sell to all sizes of businesses. So from the very small office with 1 or 2 consultants in it, right up through to very large enterprises. At present, we have over 100,000 customers spread globally, and more than 450 of the 500 Fortune 500 are our customers. Revenue for last year was over $250 million, and we were named by Forbes as the 12th fastest growing US tech company in 2012. We have a global presence now. At the moment, I'm calling from Cork in Ireland, which is our EMEA headquarters. It was opened in 2007, and there's approximately 90 people here. Lawrence is joining from Texas. As you can see, our headquarters is actually in Austin, Texas, but we also have offices around not only America, but also in Canada as well. We also have facilities in the Czech Republic, in India, and we have similar setups as well for APAC, based out of Brisbane in Australia. By having such a global distribution of not only sales but also support means as a customer you can have 24/7 support from SolarWinds. On this slide, I very quickly just want to mention some of the different products and just to also visualize the different spheres that SolarWinds operate in. As I said, traditionally SolarWinds dealt with network management. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with tools such as our Network Performance Monitor and NetFlow Traffic Analyzer. On the systems management side, we are also expanding at quite a rapid pace. Some tools you might be familiar with already include our Server and Application Manager, our Virtualization Manager, and also our Storage Manager. Obviously, the focus for today is our Patch Manager product, but I also want to highlight just a few other areas we operate in as well. We've recently acquired a company called Web Help Desk, and that offers a very powerful help desk solution. On the remote management side, I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with the name Daymare as well. Daymare are also part of the Solarwinds family. Kiwi Syslog is another quite popular name through the IT sphere. And again, more recent acquisitions include a company called Rhinosoft, which have a secure server called Servview, and also FTP Voyager. And the final slide I just want to mention here is just some recent awards and accolades. According to IDC, we're one of the top 10 network performance and operations management vendors. The next point is actually quite a large one. Last year, we were ranked #1 by Forbes for companies with less than 1 billion in revenue. So obviously, there's a lot of competition in this area. Hopefully, in another few years, we're actually going to be #1 in companies over 1 billion in revenue. And some very recent awards. Quite recently, Redmond Magazine awarded us a gold award for NPM, for Network and Systems Management. And also our Server and Application Monitor was also awarded a gold award for both application performance and systems performance. So with that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start the presentation itself. If you have any questions at all at any stage, please feel free to type them into the chat window, and we'll do our best to answer them through the call. And as I said, at the end we will have time for further Q&A. So what I have here at the moment, this is the MMC console for Patch Manager. Just to describe how Patch Manager works, basically a very high level architecture. It's not designed to replace Config Manager or any WSUS you might have. It's designed to complement them. So what we have in the console at the moment, under the Enterprise section, for example, I can see servers. One is acting as a just standard WSUS server, and the other one is a SUP for my Config Manager server. In the next area, I'm also going to see the Config Manager servers I've added. So this is going to give me some high-level information on the updates that are applicable to this patch or to this Config Manager server. And under the Admin and Reporting section, I'm going to see a list of the different vendors that we provide in our third-party catalog. So just some background on the product itself, how it's architected. Traditionally, when Imminentware, who were the company that originally created Patch Manager, the product is actually available as three separate packages. One was an extension pack for WSUS, one was as an extension pack for Config Manager, and one was a catalog of third-party updates. When Imminentware joined the Solarwinds family, we combined all three products together. So now for the same license cost, you're going to receive all of this functionality. What I'm going to do to start off with is we're actually just going to look first of all at the standard kind of common WSUS management technologies. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. I'm mainly going to focus my time purely on the Config Manager capabilities, but I just want everyone to be aware that this functionality is available. First of all, I'm actually just going to look at one of the individual machines. In this case, this is just a Windows machine connecting into my WSUS. It could also be reporting back into your SUP. From here, I have the option to not only push out updates on demand using WSUS, but I can also perform some client management tasks against these machines from here. So the first thing I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to use what's known as the Computer Explorer tool. What this tool allows us to do is to make a live WMI connection to the machine. This is going to allow us to pull back not only real-time information for troubleshooting, but it's also going to allow us to repair the machine itself. Patch Manager does not require the installation of an agent. For certain tasks, we're going to use a small WMI provider. It's not necessary for every task. It's purely if we want to connect to a machine to do something such as maybe stop or restart a service. We also have the option from here to initiate certain tasks on the machine from a config manager perspective. On my deployment here, I've enabled both WSUS and config manager control, so all of these are available in my console here. From here, if I want to initiate an inventory cycle, I can actually initiate that just by using this tool. I can either initiate a simple software inventory cycle, but I can also run multiple different cycles from here. Once I click the OK button, this is actually going to open up the task options wizard, and this tool is now going to allow me to not just run this option against a single machine, but I can also run this against everything either in a domain or an OU. In this case, we might want to run it against everything in a config manager collection. So from here, I can actually drill down into my config manager server, and I can select one of the collections that I already have. And this will allow me to run the same task against everything within that collection itself. Just while I'm waiting for this, unfortunately my servers at the moment are actually based in the US, so I have a bit of a latency issue as well I have to contend with. Okay, actually I believe in this case that server I had just selected has actually recently been retired. I should have removed that from my deployment. So from here, if I want to run this against everything in my this collection here, I can simply add it. If I want, I can actually save it as a rule. Again, if I was using pure WSUS, I could actually run this against everything in a WSUS group. If I had selected a WSUS group, I could also filter out different types of machines. So I might just want to run this against workstations as opposed to servers, for example. And now we can see, instead of running this against a single machine, it's now going to run against everything in the collection. The next feature of this is the scheduling option. So not only do you have the option to run things straight away, you can obviously also schedule them. Because the tool is, this task options wizard is common through the product, this also is common through tasks specific to WSUS, for example. So if you wanted to push out updates on demand or to schedule monthly updates based around Patch Tuesday, again, this is the mechanism you could use. So you can simply select Patch Tuesday and then put in an offset of a couple of days depending on when your maintenance window is. Once I click Next, I will then just be presented with a summary of what this task is actually going to perform. Other options we have are actually some repair options. So for example, if we want to set the DNS, for example, on a certain machine, we can do that from here. Popular options, especially with config 2007, is the ability to repair WMI on the client machine itself. Using this tool, we can make a connection to the machine and either just verify WMI, or if required, we can actually rebuild it as well. There's also the option as well to uninstall and reinstall the config manager agent. Again, if you need to pass that command line parameters, they can also be added in as well. Another useful option from the Computer Explorer is the information we're receiving is actually live information. This isn't historical information that was pulled yesterday. This is information as it's actually been pulled back from the server itself. Another very useful option here is under the installed software. We can actually see what's installed on that server real time. And again, we can actually uninstall the software from here as well. So for example, in this case, if I want to uninstall Adobe Reader, I can simply select the uninstall software option. And again, once I select uninstall, it's now going to bring me back to my task options wizard. This is the exact same wizard we saw previously. So not only can I select different machines and different groups of machines, I can also schedule this as well. So if we want, we can schedule an uninstallation of maybe Skype, for example, off everybody's machine on Monday at lunchtime. So next what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flick over and look at some of the third-party publishing options. On the config manager side, one of the most popular features we have is the pre-built catalog of third-party patches. I will jump over in a few minutes and we can actually look at the websites where we can actually see the latest updates that are applicable in the content. Just to show you from here how this is actually configured. We basically pull from the server on a synchronized setting, or you can synchronize it manually. And you can also select what updates you want to pull down. So for example, if you're purely a HP house, you might not be interested in the Dell catalogs. You might also not be interested in, for example, RealPlayer or Opera. So you can simply select which updates you want to pull down from the server. When a synchronization is run, the list of updates available is going to be refreshed here. Unfortunately, I'm after selecting a folder with over 4,000 updates in it, so this is going to take a moment. In this case here, we can just see some of the Yahoo Messenger updates. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to actually edit one of these packages so we can see what actually goes into a package and how these can be edited for use later on. When we sync with the server, we're actually just going to pull down the metadata, and basically you can then decide which packages you want to distribute to your network. We'll look very briefly as well at how these can actually be pushed into either your WSUS or into your SUP. As you can see, when I select the package, down the bottom, we're going to populate a few different tabs. Most of these tabs are going to be present for nearly all the updates. The exceptions are for MSP files. We're going to have less tabs because that logic is actually built into the package itself. What I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to edit this package. Obviously, generally you wouldn't edit an existing package. What you would first do if you wanted to make changes is make a duplicate of it and then edit the copy. In this case, I'm not going to save these changes. A lot of the fields we see here are just standard Microsoft Update information. You'll also notice on the right-hand side we have the option to create new packages. Again, users have actually used Patch Manager and simply just WSUS to distribute large applications such as Office through their network. Again, quite a popular feature. What we're looking at here is a pre-built package. So a lot of these fields are fairly self-explanatory. The classification, for example, whether something's a service pack or generally for the third-party updates, we're going to class those as tools. Also, information such as the impact and the reboot behavior are available here as well. On the next screens, the first screen we have here is a set of the prereq rules, and this is basically the logic that's going to be used to determine whether a package is applicable to be installed on a machine or not. So generally the prereq rules are fairly high level, such as what OS it is, what language it is it 32-bit, 64-bit, for example. Again, if you want, you can actually customize these. You might want to add in a certain rule. You can also save sets of rules. So here, for example, we just have a pre-built rule that says, is the architecture 32-bit? You might want to create an MSI rule that just checks to see whether a certain product is already installed as a prereq for this installation. On the next screen, we're going to see information specific to the package itself. So first of all, what type of package it is. Patch Manager can deploy .exes, .msis, and .msps. We can also specify whether the package is already on the network or whether you need to pull it down from the web itself. And we also have the ability to use what's known as the package boot helper. What this program does, it basically allows you to run a set of commands either before or after installation. So for example, in this case, before we install this Yahoo package, we want to make sure Yahoo Messenger is not running. You might also want to, another common one, for example, when running Java updates, is to make sure Internet Explorer is not running. Other actions you might want to take, you might want to stop a service, for example. You might want to handle different locked files. If you wanted to do something such as run another executable or perhaps a script, you could also run that as well as a program. Then once the package is installed, afterwards you might want to undo the actions that you've done, such as if you have a service stopped, you might want to restart that service again. We also have the option as well, when you're using the package boot, to also distribute other packages. There's also some standard settings here depending on the languages, for example. In this case, because we're using a .exe, there's also the ability to pass in the command line arguments. Other sections include the applicability rules, which are quite similar to the prereq rules. And the final set of rules we have here are the install rules. So whereas the prereq and applicability rules check to see whether a certain update is valid on the machine, this set of rules then checks to see whether the update has been installed. So in this case, for example, we're just checking to see if a certain executable has a certain value of a version. And the final page then is basically just a summary of what this package contains. So once I have my package, if you are building a package, once that's built, in this case we could just take a standard Yahoo Messenger package. And from here, if I want to distribute this across my network, I'd simply select the Publish Packages option. What the Publish Packages option does is it's basically going to download the content. And in this case, I'm actually going to select this package here because it's downloaded already. It'll simply download the content either from the website or if it's on a share in your network. You can simply select the server you want to push it to. And then after a few minutes, that update is now going to be available either for distribution through WSUS, or it's going to be in your SUP where you can then build a standard config manager deployment. Just while we're on the area of the third-party updates, the time period we have for pushing out the updates can obviously vary depending on the update itself. However, we really pride ourselves in how fast we get the updates out. Online, we actually maintain a blog post that contains the updates that were added this month. And as you'll see here, it also contains information on not only when the update was released by the vendor, so in this case, when this version of Flash 11.5 was out, it also contains the day that it was added to our catalog. So all this historical information is there. You can actually see how our performance is. We're not just going to say we're going to have a certain update out, as fast as possible. On this blog post, it's actually possible through this Excel sheet to see historically how fast we're getting these updates out. So not only do we mention when it was released by the vendor, but also when it was added to our catalog. So not only are we taking the update and packaging it, we're also doing quite a lot of testing on it in the background to make sure once this update is rolled out, it's not going to cause issues across your network. Once an update is pushed into either WSUS or into your SUP, on the WSUS side, for example, you'll then have the option to treat this the exact same way as you would with a standard Microsoft update. As you can see here, this has been approved. In this case, this WinZip package has been evaluated by all the client machines, and we can actually see it's not applicable on any of these machines. I can switch over to the computer summary view, and it's actually going to break it down per machine, whether this update has been installed, whether the update has been downloaded to a certain machine, for example, and is ready for installation, but hasn't yet been installed. In the config manager context, if you enable reporting to the SUP, you can still receive this information as it's all going to be reported back, or you can obviously pull this information through config manager as well itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to flick over to my config manager server, and just going to. And when you install the patch manager console on a machine that already has a config manager console installed, it's going to add in some new resources. So here, for example, under the software library, we can see it has actually added a list of the third-party updates. And this contains a list of all of the updates that have been published. In this case, we're looking at a folder showing the last 7 days. And here I can see all of these updates that have been published. Again, we'll also notice once I select an update, we have the similar tabs as we saw previously in the MMC. So we can actually view information, what the prereqs are for the certain package. And from here, again, I can actually publish this into my SUP from here. Once it's in the SUP and once you have done a synchronization, the update will now be ready to build a deployment package with. Other functionality is also going to be available from here. So for example, if we switch over and look at all the devices on our network, once I select a device, I'll also see again the context menu that we saw previously. So the actions I have for example, if I want to install updates or install the required updates on a schedule, that information is also here. The Computer Explorer option we saw previously, that's here as well. So again, from here, I have all of this flexibility. This basically means you don't need to have the Config Manager console open for most of your tasks. Everything can all be done from within a single console. It's also worth noting as well for Config Manager 2007, Patch Manager will also support that as well as the standard WSUS. So the same version is going to run across all of the different versions. The final thing I just want to introduce quite briefly is the integration with some of the other Solarwinds products. And this is achieved through a new web console that was released with version 1.8 of Patch Manager. We're currently on 1.85. And this is basically a reporting console that allows you to see the health of not only all of your configuration manager and WSUS servers in one place, but also all of the client machines from here. So what I have here on a separate machine is just a web console, and this is just pulling information from my Patch Manager server. Here, for example, on the left-hand side, we can just see some information being pulled from the WSUS servers. I can see here, for example, all of the nodes managed by my WSUS broken down into different machine types. If we want to customize one of these resources, I can simply select the Edit button, and that's going to allow me to display how the information is grouped and presented. And we can also obviously change the title, for example. What we see here is going to be, if you're already familiar with SolarWinds products such as our Network Performance Monitor or the Server and Application Monitor, this is the same front end that's used. So it's very customizable and quite easy to change to suit your needs. What I have here is just under my workstation view. I can see some of the machines I'm actually are pushing out updates to from this WSUS server. Because these machines are also being managed by our Server and Application Monitor, by hovering over a certain machine, I'm actually going to see some high-level health on that machine itself. So not only what the average response time and packet loss is, also basic health information such as the CPU and memory usage, also what type of machine it is, in this case Windows 8. And I'll also see a nice resource showing the health of the updates for that individual machine itself. So how many has been installed, how many are required. Other useful resources here, scrolling down, again broken down in this case by the different types of servers. So how many of my workstations are healthy, how many of my servers are healthy. And this resource here is just showing a breakdown based on the different types of OS across the network. We also have a resource here showing all of the patches. So if I expand this out, I'm actually, again, you can actually customize how this information is presented. So if I want information on a particular update, for example, I can simply hover over the package and it's going to give me some very high-level information what this update is actually required for. If we want, and I'm actually going to open this in a new link, we can actually click into this and we can view information based on an update level as opposed to from a server level. Other very useful resources, here we have the top 10 most vulnerable machines in our network and also the top 10 latest patches. Again, very common through the Solarwinds Orion suite is the option to use a lot of top 10s and top 5s. Basically, this is just to highlight where the bottlenecks are on your network. From here, if I actually want, I can click into one of these machines, and this is going to give me information at a different level. So this is going to give me information specific to this machine itself. In this case, we can see it's fully compliant. As opposed to Microsoft, where it would just present information at a very high level within the WSUS MMC, so whether updates are needed or unknown. We also break down that information to say whether updates have actually been downloaded to the machine and are ready to be installed, or whether updates are installed on the machine just needs to be rebooted. Again, that's quite a useful information to have from here. From here, we can also see by hovering over this icon, this is telling me that I'm actually managing this device within the server and application monitor. So even if you don't have the server and application monitor in use, you can still install this console. This is an optional console. There's no effect on licensing. This is available free of charge. But from here, if I want, I can actually drill over and look at this particular device within SAM. And this is going to give me some health information on either this workstation in this case or on your server. So not just graphical information on ICMP, response time and packet loss in this case. It would also give information on any applications you're monitoring on this machine. So for example, if you're running Exchange, if you're running IIS or even Linux, for example, you'll be able to pull back that information. Again, on this page, because I have Patch Manager installed in the server, I'm also going to see these resources on the SAM page. So depending on which product you're coming at it from, you're still going to receive that information. And the final page I'm just going to flick over and look at here is the update details page. In this case, this is actually showing me information from an update perspective as opposed to a high-level node perspective. So I can see here information how this applies across my network. So for example, what the company that produced it is, when it was created, when it arrived on my server. I can also see a breakdown of how it applies to machines across our network. And as you can see here, I have this filtered to just show approved updates. So if it's not approved, obviously I'm not interested in this case. And in this breakdown, I can actually see it's installed on one machine, but on another machine it's not applicable. If we drill over to the machine it's not applicable on, it's my Windows 8 machine. So in this case, this update might be for a 32-bit machine, and we can see here this is actually a 64-bit virtual machine. So I'm a bit ahead of schedule here on the demo side, but at this stage what we can do is we can open up the floor for any questions, either for myself or for Lawrence.
Are we going to do these via the chat panel or through the questions panel?
We can actually, we can discuss these. I'm just seeing here we have a question that was entered earlier. Sorry, from Andrew. Is it possible to customize the packages to configure certain settings or switch off automatic updates within a package such as Adobe Reader? So sorry, Lawrence, just for a few minutes we can discuss these ourselves over the device setting. So Lawrence, would you like to take that question? And I'll actually switch over.
Yeah, so the answer is in most cases, yes, those customizations can be made. Typically the challenge with that is every vendor implements their methodologies differently. So some products are driven by registry values. Some products are driven by command line parameters on the command line for the installer. So in those cases where it's driven by a command line parameter, you can duplicate that package, customize it, and add the appropriate command line parameters. Ostensibly, Java is a product that supports this. For those products that are registry driven, you could use package boot functionality and merge registry keys into the client systems to turn that functionality off. But arguably, using group policy to affect registry modifications is really a more reliable solution. So it can be done with Patch Manager, but that may not be the most optimal way to achieve that objective.
Okay, thanks for that, Lawrence. And we'll just keep So another question from Megan McGowan. How many non-Microsoft catalogs are available?
There are 4 right now, and that's a qualified answer. There used to be 5. Well, actually, there's 6, but there's 4 that are functionally usable. So Dell has 2 catalogs, a server catalog and a client catalog. Adobe actually has, Adobe has 5 catalogs now. They have an Acrobat catalog, which is split to version 10 and version 11. They have a Reader catalog, which is split between version 10 and version 11. And all 4 of those catalogs are configured by default in a Patch Manager implementation. And they also have a Flash catalog, which we don't configure by default because functionally it has very limited usefulness. It's a great way to get the current version of Flash, but if you need anything legacy, it's pretty much useless. HP also has had 2 catalogs, a server catalog and a client catalog, but they discontinued their legacy ProLiant server catalog on July 12th. Ostensibly, there is a replacement catalog available, but I and others who have tried have been unable to actually find where they buried it at HP.com. So that's kind of still up in the air, but theoretically, there's client and server catalogs for HP as well too.
Thanks for that, Lawrence. And another question, this time from Darren, is what reporting and auditing is in place if a package has been removed from the client via Patch Manager?
So in terms of removal, there's a couple of different ways that you might be able to retrieve that. If the package was physically removed using a Computer Explorer, install software, uninstall software type of task, then there will be task history in the Patch Manager environment that is retained by default for 60 days, and you can report on that using the reporting engine in Patch Manager. If the package was uninstalled using the Windows Update agent, that should be logged in the Windows Update history. And I think those are going to be your only reporting methodologies for that. There may also be event log entries in some cases, but that would be product specific.
Okay, and that actually brings us to a good point. One of the things I hadn't actually covered on the call previously was the reporting functionality within Patch Manager. This allows us to actually pull information, not just on tasks that we run, but also on WMI inventories that we can perform across the network. So again, quite popular in WSUS environments. People might want to run either a daily or weekly inventory of all of the devices on their network, and they can then report back on, which machines have a certain version of Adobe installed, for example. So again, quite useful to know about that functionality. So Lawrence, just to give people a few more minutes in case they want to ask any further questions, can I just ask a question myself? On the set of catalogs that are available from other vendors, are you seeing any or hearing about any more catalogs that might be coming on stream from other maybe hardware vendors, for example?
No, unfortunately. I've heard a lot of conversation about it sure would be nice to see a Lenovo catalog. And there used to be an IBM catalog for their PC line that obviously IBM quit maintaining when they sold that division to Lenovo, but Lenovo did not pick up that endeavor. There's also been talk from time to time about two other likely sources that could be very beneficial would be Apple and Oracle. But if anybody remembers the conversations from MMS a couple of years ago, getting Adobe and the System Center team together just to get Adobe to commit to doing their catalogs was like pulling teeth and twisting arms, and it took a third party to get all of those people together and kind of coerce Adobe into doing that. The odds of having that sort of luck with Adobe and Apple are probably a lot less than they were with Adobe. So no, I know there's a lot of places where we could benefit from additional catalogs, but I've heard nothing that indicates that anybody is on board with doing that.
Sure, and again, it was actually Lenovo Lenovo from my perspective. It's something I've been hearing a good bit recently. Quite popular now, especially within Europe. Something I'm pretty much asked on a weekly basis. Do we think Lenovo are going to help us out with this one? So, any final questions? Either over the chat. If not at this stage, what we can do is we can finish this part of the presentation. If anybody has anything they'd like to ask later on, we can keep the chat open for a few minutes. Also, on screen, we have some information here, just some basic contact information for myself and Lawrence. I've just seen another question here coming in from Raphael. How many products do you have support for now? So, Raphael, I'm not sure in this case, are you referring to products, third-party software updates? Okay, perfect. Lawrence, do you have a number? I know the number is kind of changing every week. We're adding new content in on a regular basis.
I heard somebody the other day throw around the number 20. So let me see if I can count off the top of my head. So there's Adobe. There's 5 Adobe products: Acrobat, Reader, Flash, Shockwave, and Air.
Yeah.
There's 2 Google packages, Chrome and Earth. There are 2 Mozilla packages, Thunderbird and Firefox. The Skype, Java, Yahoo Messenger. That puts us at 12. And let's see, some stuff I'm not synchronizing in my machine. So there's WinZip, Real Player.
We have Opera.
Oh, yeah, the whole Apple suite. So there's 3 Apple products out there: iTunes, QuickTime, and and the ADMF. We actually choose up. So we're pushing at least 15, maybe 20 in there as total.
Sure, and we actually keep this information, as I said previously. It's available on a blog post. The easiest way to find it is to go to patchzone.org, where we have a lot of excellent contributions, not only from Lawrence, but also from people outside of SolarWinds, not just on SolarWinds, but on general patch management best practices. Another question that has just come in is there patch support for non-Windows config 2012 SP1 clients, such as Linux or Unix?
There is not, and as I'm understanding this, if you read the fine print really carefully in the SP1 literature, the only actual support there for Linux and Unix is actually software deployments as opposed to software updates. And then the challenge with all of that is because the whole software update infrastructure of configuration manager is still dependent upon the Windows Update agent being able to communicate with the software update point, the WSF server. Now, presumably, a Windows Update agent could be written for Linux, Unix, Mac systems, but the other limitation is that the Microsoft schema that we can define these patch packages with only supports Windows executables, EXEs, MSIs, and MSPs. So there would have to be some major rewriting in that package schema in order to support the Linux and Mac installation packages.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Lawrence. And another question. Sorry, it actually isn't a question. It's basically just a thanks, so no problem. So any final questions available? As I said, if anybody has anything that they want to take a few minutes and come back to us about, we can keep the chat window open. You'll also see on screen we just have our contact details for myself, who's based within EMEA, and also for Lawrence, who happens to be one of our head of geeks. And you can follow Lawrence at Head of Geeks. You can also download trials of the Solarwinds Patch Manager for 30 days. Simply log on to solarwinds.com and you'll see the links from there to download the trial. So with that, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everybody for attending tonight on behalf of SolarWinds and Lawrence. I'd also appreciate, Lawrence, you joining the call tonight, and a big thanks as well to Raphael, who spent a lot of time organizing this. Also apologies for the short notice cancellation last week due to technical difficulties, and we appreciate everyone rescheduling for this week. So thanks for your time, everyone.